As a nation, we've struggled to get our productivity rate up, but then came the pandemic that sent everything on a decline. This morning, we'll be finding out where we are as a country as it relates to productivity and where we need to be. So, Senior Director of Research and Measurement at the Jamaica Productivity Center, Michael Ann Urquhart, joins us now. Hi, Michael Ann. Welcome to Smile Jamaica.
Morning.
Hi, good morning, Neville. Good morning, Delia. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope all is well.
Yes, it is.
I know what the word means, but when it comes when we're talking about it on a national scale, what do you mean by productivity?
Okay, so when we think about productivity, it's important that we don't confuse it with production. So when we think about productivity, it's how effective we are at turning our inputs into outputs. Or in simpler terms, it is how much outputs we can get for every unit of input that we use. So ultimately, our goal is to improve productivity. So with the same amount of inputs, how can we have more outputs? In other words, working smarter, not harder.
Yeah. How have we been doing over the years, and then how have we been doing since the pandemic?
Well, if we look at labor productivity over the last 2 decades, so that's from about 2000 to 2019, labor productivity on average per year has declined at a rate of about 0.6%. So there has been a declining trend in our labor productivity. In the global context, our labor productivity has also been falling, but unfortunately, Jamaica is falling at a faster rate than across the globe.
Why is that? Why are we falling at a faster rate?
Well, there's a number of challenges. So if we speak to the global context, there are some natural indicators that will cause our productivity to fall. For example, there's a natural rate of decline in the amount of human capital attainment as more people become more educated. There's a natural fall off in terms of the rate at which demand and investments and even trade is growing. And then for our local context, there's a number of factors that might impact this, such as crime. We also have relatively low investments in research and innovation compared to other countries. We also have challenges as it relates to adopting technology in the Caribbean. We tend to be much slower to adapt to technology. And there's other issues in terms of how we do business, infrastructure constraints, and problems in terms of the skills and jobs mismatching. So sometimes the skills that are available in the market are not necessarily the skills that are needed in that productivity improving environment.
Wow.
Yeah. In preparing for this, I read at the World Bank doing business report for 2020, Jamaica slipped one place. And it says Jamaica's low productivity in large part can also be attributed to deficiencies in education. Can you explain that?
Definitely. So that definitely speaks to my last point. So when we talk about deficiencies in education, if we were to compare ourselves to another country, let's just say the United States, right? In the United States, when we look at the persons who have advanced degrees, that percentage is over 30%. In Jamaica, however, that percentage is under 10%. Right? So when we have more human capital, so that's more education, more skills, more experience, we find that productivity can improve, right? And even across the globe, if we were to look at the rate of education and the rate of productivity, we would actually see that countries that have higher level of education actually have higher levels of productivity growth.
This might sound like a weird question, Michaela, and it might even be a step backward, but what is the productivity measurement scale that we use? And I'm saying that because I find that we ignore things like the creative culture and the creative sector, which is a big part of who we are as Jamaica and a big part of our productivity measurements. But I don't know if that's captured in the scales that are used globally.
Okay, so when we think about productivity, well, in terms of the measure that we've been using this morning, labor productivity, what we're looking at is the amount of output. So that's our real GDP per each worker for the year. So when we think about output, any output that is measured in terms of whatever sector it might come from, as long as it's being measured in GDP or gross domestic product, that's our country's output for the year,
Right.
then it would be included. So in our GDP, we do have segments that account for services, entertainment. However, as we know, that there may be some informal activities that might not take place.
Right.
But in general, if our services are measured in our GDP, then it will be included. But
Okay.
to your point, it's to say that labor output per worker for the year is not necessarily the best or the most effective way of measuring productivity, but it's definitely the easiest way to measure it consistently across countries.
All right. Thank you.
Is it a surprise that our productivity fell because of the pandemic? Because we've had businesses had to close, people had to lay off workers. So it's not a surprise, is it? Or is it?
Oh, definitely not. So COVID-19 would have caused a lot of issues. So the first issue we have with the pandemic is that it would have reduced the amount of working hours. So it would reduce the time that people can work. There were also limitations put in as we tried to stop the spread of disease that would have caused a decline in demand. Persons weren't able to actually produce as much. So once you have lower production, you're going to find that you're going to have a worse productivity. However, what's interesting is that what we found is that there are actually some industries in which productivity would have actually increased.
Right.
And in these industries, you would find that it was more likely that they were able to adapt to changes, whether through technology or management or using capital rather than labor, in order to keep their production growing, even despite the decline in labor.
Yeah.
So certain industries, for example, electricity and water, even in finance. So for industries that can actually adapt more and that actually tend to be less labor intensive, you'll find that productivity can improve once technology is adapted correctly.
Yeah. Is there a link between salary and productivity?
So definitely salary can be a motivator for productivity. Salary also can come into the calculation of productivity. So what you will find is that workers who actually work more, who work harder because of a higher salary, that can be a motivation. But what you also find is that when we have higher productivity, it allows us to be able to improve the quality and the price of the goods that we are able to produce, and that can be a motivation for salaries to rise.
All
So
right.
it can actually improve from both sides.
All right, we're heading into Productivity Week soon, and you have a productivity writing contest. Tell us a little about that.
Yes, so excited to talk about this. So the world celebrates Productivity Day on June 20th. This year it's a Sunday, but we've decided to make a whole week out of it at the Jamaica Productivity Center. So we'll be celebrating from June 21st to June 25th. Including in the activities, we have a forum, we'll have workshops, we'll have games, and we're excited to launch our productivity innovation competition. So if you have a quick idea you'd like to share about productivity, it's a good opportunity to share it with the nation and to be able to be recognized for your efforts.
All right.
And the deadline is June 11th. So you can send an email to jpc@mlss.gov.jm if you'd like more information.
Yeah, fantastic. Good to have you with us.
Yeah.
Stay safe. God bless you. Look after yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
Michaela
Yeah.
Urquhart, the Senior Director, Research and Measurement at the Jamaica Productivity Center.
Yeah, important discussion. Coming up, we're going to hear all about the legacy of the Manning School and their need for restoration. Soon come back.